We're going to discuss today the reasons why all spiritual instructors, masters of martial arts, like Greg and my teacher, Mr. Menk here, and of course young Carlos here, are so confident. Spiritual people, martial artists, healers, helpers in any way, mothers, they live for their child. And when you have a discipline, could be martial arts. What we're going to discuss today are psychological, emotional processes that work all of the time if taken to fruition. In other words, if we do them. So we'll prove the fact that experientially as well. I'll work with all of us watching and everyone in this room to show how easily we can step aside from the prefrontal cortex, which is the only problem, where the entirety of the illusion has survived so long and so tragically for every human being, for every soul that's involved in this world system, which is not just minuscule or minute in all the spiritual literature and teachings throughout history of the world is seen as not even a way station through eternity, but either a hell or a nothingness as it's seen in the East, Eastern wisdom. So when you have this experience called illumination, where you know these different processes that Mr. Skolter would take or Mr. Menk would take you through, take some time, but you're disciplining yourself and you know you can always be a little better, a little more improved. And when the dark side hits you, you know you've been through it 300 times. Like the first time in my first martial arts class with Sergeant Joe Sullivan in the Marine Corps, you get hit here and now, accidentally just playing with you, but that teaches you that you're not going to get knocked out. The average person on the street, if they get punched in the jaw, they're going to get knocked out. And they don't have to because that's what they think their body should do. So if you accidentally get hit here and there, you go, oh, that's just like a child learns from falling and getting up and falling and getting up. They're going to get up. But what we're going to move in today is something very, in a spiritual, psychological sense, scientific. There is this condition called illumination. And some of the ways to get there, let's begin with one, will be called, let's say, a recall list. And it's the communication between me, the facilitator, and you, the individual being worked with. We're going to show how communication on all levels works and how it can take you out of the prefrontal cortex and you can arrive in a higher existence of spiritual faith and you won't have any more doubt, even though the dark side will hit you and slap you upside the head all day. It won't matter anymore. Because like Martin Luther King said that, for I've been to the mountaintop and he's allowed me to look over, and so forth and so on. And I saw the promised land. And these processes work if taken to fruition, if done. And let's begin with the simplest, which is whenever you're communicating with someone, to listen to them. If you're at a Thanksgiving dinner and you say a prayer, we all know what this is like, and you feel you get it done real quickly because you feel like you don't have time, but, because they're not really listening to you. Their prefrontal cortex has gone off, they're thinking about this or that or the wash, they're not listening to you. And if you listen to someone, as I've done, if I've been trained to listen to combat veterans for any period of time, and provided they're not on drugs or alcohol, you can fix whatever is going on in their mind and take them out of, again, the prefrontal cortex was simply a sense organ, no more, no less. So I'm going to ask you a question. I'll say recall a time, such and such. You'll think about it for a moment. It will come to you. And then I'll say thank you, which will be an acknowledgement that the question has been answered, and then we'll go on to another question, and another question. And lo and behold, A few questions into it, you'll see that your mind stops. You're being communicated to completely. There's a token of communication that I want Mr. Skolta to understand, and as soon as he acknowledges that he heard it and understands, he'll signal that to me by saying thank you, whatever, and both of us will feel complete openness. Your mind will kick off, okay? So let's begin with a few questions, and let's see how this works. As soon as you see it experientially, then we'll build from there. And then building on top of that, you can see why a truly spiritual person has faith that they're going to get to the other shore because they're already there. They know it's not such a big swim. They can get up and back there during the day or early evening hours and whatever they want. Because there is another shore. There is a God. There's an infinite intelligence and purity and wisdom. And it's a person, a very, very kind and nice person. And we call him God. It's not nirvana, it's not the great void. It's the great fullness, the great humanness of eternity. And he'll step through everything with us. The imponderables, where people present us with problems that can't be fixed, and we're in the middle of it. And we're going to show today, by using these processes, that anything can be fixed, anything can be walked through, and you can use these with all you love, use these processes with all those you love and around you, by simply being attentive to everyone. There's no reason to not listen to anyone in front of you, no matter who it is. I can do it with crazy people, drunks, high on drugs, as well as like a dear friend, my friend Susan, who wrote the book with me, After Time, that I wrote a few years ago, and she put it together. And little genius, 190 IQ, and she can say something, I can say something with a whisper, and got it. So let's do that one list and build from there. I apologize for going on. I just want to have clarity that what we're doing isn't out there somewhere. It's not some hippie thing. It works, always. So you'll be aware of me, and let the mind empty and just be focused on me asking a question, and you'll acknowledge in your mind that you understood it. And I'll continue. Begin. Recall a time you did something ordinary in an artistic manner. Thank you. Recall a time you enjoyed a gourmet meal. Thank you. Recall a time you knew you were a good person. Thank you. Recall a time you applied the golden rule, do unto others. Thank you. Recall a time you were simply in love with life. Thank you. Recall a time the family went on a picnic. Thank you. Recall a time a child did something truly helpful. Thank you. Recall a time you felt larger than your body, like a transcendent experience, just thrilled with life. Thank you. Recall a time you learned to dance. Thank you. Recall a time you graduated. Thank you. Recall a time you truly appreciated a work of art. Thank you. Recall a time you felt a profound oneness with nature. Thank you. You can see if you listen and you just say something in your mind and don't go over it just once, see it and drop it, then you bypass the prefrontal cortex, or you aim it or educate it or discipline it, and it will get out of the way. That's what Zen Buddhist meditation is about. Martial arts meditation is you lower the whole sensorial field, all that you feel, to the base of the abdomen. Oof, you're down here. And then the mind, the prefrontal cortex, you aim it at the floor with Buddhist meditation 18 inches in front of you. Let's just try that a moment ourselves. Feel all the emotion you have, your sensorial field, down base of the abdomen. And you'll feel the abdomen expanding and releasing, the abdominal walls, with your inhalation and exhalation. Just practice that, and then you can close your eyes and relax and let your mind fall down to that place, feeling the abdominal walls expanding and releasing. Let's do this on our own for about 1 minute, and I'll just be quiet. You'll feel your flow of your mind and all your emotions down those abdominal walls, expanding and releasing. And what will happen is the mind will simply get out of the head looking for crazy thoughts, because that's all it is, a sense organ. And you'll discipline it to go down to the base of the abdomen, and that's where it will be. And when you train yourself to do this, you do it 20, 25 minutes, something so extraordinary will happen that even if you're enlightened, it'll be 100-fold. You'll turn inside out, and the world won't exist for you anymore. And you'll be where Martin Luther King was during that beautiful vision with God. 10 or 12 breaths, mind and emotions, deep in the hara, the stomach area. Begin. Thank you. End the meditation. Now I'm going to do something, because I know several of us here and many of us listening, and probably myself if I look at it tonight, have things going on that trouble us. And I'm going to do a past, present recollection. I'm going to do a little technique where remember something that's the most recent horror show you've had in your head or your life or your guts emotionally. Someone's communicated something bad, or someone messed up at work or at home, and you're kind of stuck there a little bit. So what I'm going to do is ask you a question, and another question, and the same question, and the other question over and over, going to repeat it, and see how you feel at the end of that time. This is about time and the prefrontal cortex. I'm giving a lot of information. If I were training privately with you, I'd be much slower and easier with it, but I know we're all very intelligent and we're going to capture this in our gut. So I want us to recall something that's bugging us. I'll ask you when that happened, and then the next question will be, what time is it now? So recall whatever that recent incident was. What time did that happen? Thank you. Think of the time in your mind. And what time is it now? Thank you. What time did that incident occur? Thank you. What time is it now? Thank you. What time did that incident happen? Thank you. What time is it now? Thank you. What time did that incident happen? Thank you. What time is it now? Thank you. You're simply answering in your mind, and we'll keep continuing. It's called a past-present comparison, and it will take you out of the prefrontal cortex, which keeps playing it over and over again, and at a point it will dissipate and even disappear. We're going to continue. If you've gotten over that one and forgot about it, it's already gone, you can try another one. We're going to continue, because you'll feel this different presences working, and you'll see how you can actually discipline your thinking mind. It's quite wonderful. What time did that incident happen? Thank you. What time is it now? Thank you. What time did that incident happen? Thank you. What time is it now? Thank you. What time did that incident happen? Thank you. What time is it now? Thank you. End session on that. And I hope we all saw, we glimpsed at how you can discipline the thinking mind. This is a very simple, I've developed many hundreds of these, and they all work if taken to fruition. And there are thousands of self-enhancement or spiritual enhancement techniques available, and they'll all show you a little edge of that. I'm simply putting them all together and saying that there is a God, and everyone here is spiritual, and everyone in the world who's spiritual, and there are hundreds of millions, have the same horrible stuff happening every day, and all we have to do is discipline the thinking mind and the emotions. We can do it through that Zen meditation, like Bodhidharma did, the gentleman that took Buddhism from India to China, the Shaolin monasteries and all that. And he was known as began Chan Buddhism, which is Zen Buddhism, which is brought all the beautiful gardens and the architecture and the beautiful flowering gardens and samurai culture to Japan. And he influenced all of Chinese art. And if we study it, it's more involved than we would ever imagine. In the West, we appreciate art, but we don't really live the principles of it that where it's brought into our everyday life. And we comprehended it as part of everyday life. And that's why there's so much humility and discipline in much of the East. I'm not saying that the warlords are any different than the politicians in America or anything like that. I'm saying there's a general sense in the everyday existence that's more humble. People know that you have to be humble to get your business done. If you're doing business with the Lord, you, yes sir, no sir, you quietly, humbly communicate with each other. Getting back to the Thanksgiving dinner, if next time someone gets up to speak to you or make a speech, just quietly, don't argue, just sit there and listen. And if they're off base somehow, if you're listening to them, they'll see their own mind working, and they won't be fighting you and trying to prove a point, and they'll see their own illusion or their own mistaken thought. I hope this is making sense. All you have to do is drop everything inside you. Don't react to anything being said. And the person will feel relaxed, and they'll say what they really feel. My buddies Greg and my teacher, Mr. Mink here, are world champion martial artists, and they know as teachers and instructors and trainers that someone can be, everyone they're going to fight telegraphs. They'll see it before it happens. They'll probably know before the fight exactly what's going to be coming at them. And so they'll train people in that art. And 1 in 100 people will be completely off base and screw up the day for the rest of the training cadre of the students, but 95% of the time it'll be very clean compared to any other normal activity in our life, especially in our social life, where there's really very little discipline. There has to be a protocol, a sense of honor, integrity with all human life. Even if you're out drinking with your buddies, there has to be a respect. I know as an ex-Marine, or always a Marine, you're always messing with each other, but that's to make sure to check that that person isn't taking you serious, isn't reacting to something you said about them. And that makes everyone happy and clean. I know in Mr. Mink's atmosphere of his classes, when there are dozens of people, it's quiet. It's you could be in church on a Sunday morning when the kids are rolling around there and happy, and there's very little problems with discipline. And when they come up, they're dealt with in a way that no other community in our country could handle. Because they've trained, they've disciplined to work together and see that there's a way to learn to get beyond every aspect of human intercommunication, which is what martial arts are about. Psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. Because you're no longer afraid of one another, something takes over the whole atmosphere. You become like one person. You're lit from within. And it shows. And then you don't have fear. And like Mr. Escolta says, it's to be safe in your own skin, to be secure in your own skin. And all men have this. You check each other out for who's tough, who's this, and if you're relaxed about it, I do that 99% from being spiritual, and I've gotten so much from my teachers, Mr. Escolta and Mr. Mink, because they're absolute masters and they're spiritual. So everyone is safe around them. Does that make sense? That's why a man should be strong in the house. When a man's laying down on the couch watching television, he's not wasting the day away, darling. Respectfully, I'll pay for this one. He's conserving energy. So if someone comes in the perimeter of the house, he's ready to jump up and pounce and protect the home so that mother can take care of the kids, and so on and so forth. That's just traditional, but I'm just giving a humorous sense of what this is about. If we all do our part in a relaxed way, and the weird little bullshit in the thinking mind ceases, which is what this is about, and it will cease through these exercises, or through deep Zen meditation, or whatever meditation you use. There is a God, so when you're disciplined, you'll be aware of God with every footstep. You'll never again touch the ground. You'll step inches above the ground for the rest of your life once you comprehend what's being said today. That's why Martin Luther King had confidence. He saw the same vision that the great saints saw, that the holy ones saw, that the martyrs saw, that your mom saw at birth. It's worth anything and everything I have to do to raise this young one to be safe and fulfilled and even happy. So she'll pay the rest of her days because she's seen the light at birth, the innocence, the purity. She saw the light coming from the other side of eternity, where another innocent was born into this atmosphere to try to help end it. That's why we're here. We're volunteer soldiers to end the illusion. Everyone in this room is spiritual. Hundreds of millions of people in the world are spiritual. It's original innocence. You came here to give it a try. And simply today we're saying, this is how it ends. Using these processes, some prayer and knowing. This very wonderful person that surrounds us and guides us. And for all intents and purposes, and for all that is true in heaven, that person is us. It's a very high state of consciousness, you could say. Or if you're in the light itself, you are the light itself. There are endless, infinite realms of spirituality. And there's only one that's dog-eared like this place. In other words, a place in a book where you keep turning that page to, because you can't get it out of your head. And I'm saying, using these processes, we can get anything out of our head. These are not just words. And it's because there is this very nice person, my Father, our Father, God. And God is an infinite, unending, unyielding presence in the same sense that your mother is unyielding. She demands that you're happy and healthy and cared for. Even if you turn out pretty bad. It's still her heart's desire. Because she saw where you come from. She knows who you really are. Imagine how much greater our Father in heaven knows who you really are. The light, these processes, all the holy writings and teachings and the great examples of the martyrs, they're for you, they're for me, they're for God, they're for our mom and our dad and our sister, and especially for our puppy, especially for our puppy. You understand how wonderful God is, how big all this is, how grand all this is. You're born to heal. All you have to do is start listening, concentrating. And though we fall to our knees when our puppy's ill, these words aren't to give us solace, but to give us power to overcome the whole world, if we will. In the East, the world is known as an illusion. The Buddha said that you will visit the house of your illusion no more. In other words, once you're awake, the Buddha was the awakened one. He saw everything that's being said today. He lived through it all. If you read Siddhartha, the Hermann Hesse book, it describes this in a very beautiful, warm, human, emotional way, so you can capture the whole of it. And he's simply saying that it's not this, it's not that, it's this utter quiet. where you see back to the puppy's beginning and innocence, and knows that it lives only to please you. So let's please our Father God, because He lives to please us. If you can understand that. A spiritual person, there are hundreds of millions of us in the world, are aware of these things all day, every day. And we're also aware that almost no one ever listens to us. Does that make sense? So when you actually get very quiet and you listen to a friend or a loved one, or especially a loved one, and look in our puppy's eyes, we'll see they live for us. And they won't die no matter how sick they are, because they love us and don't want to let us go. That makes sense? And the puppy, and you look in the eyes, you'll see God, won't you? And God's speaking to us through every puppy, through every mom and dad, through every quiet night. He's up on the mountains. He's deep in the soul. For the most wonderful, precious things in life can't be seen or heard or even touched. They can only be felt with a heart. And that's what the puppy's telling us, isn't he? So my teacher was a puppy by the name of Edgy. And I've never known a holy man in my life that look in those eyes, you'll see something, God directly. It's quite astounding, and some people don't quite get it because there's a clarity with God. If you see the great Buddhas, like when I was in the Dalai Lama's temple in Dharamsala, there's a Buddha back there that's called, and I sat there alone about 6 hours. And it's the same eyes of the Buddha. These are people that practice meditation for thousands of years. And so their images and sense of reality and spirituality and truth are quite profound. Trust their writings. In other words, all the holy writings, all the religions, all the poets, all the soothsayers, in other words, truth, all those who bring truth to you. Sartre one time said that, for we are all guilty without wanting to be, and innocent without knowing. How profound is that? And that's the truth of what's being said. There's nothing wrong with us. This world that captures us by the tail, which is the prefrontal cortex, is nothingness. And you're God's flesh. That's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not to be questioned. You're to be honored and understood and comprehended in your own time, in your own place. And as soon as you make yourself quiet, gather back your self-respect, which isn't an emotional stand, it's something of the quietude. It's hearing a feather drop in the sands of the Sahara Desert on a hot summer afternoon. You're 1,000 miles away. That's how quiet the Buddha was, the Christ is. You are the quiet. Don't let them take your dignity anymore. You're worth so much more. So when you feel the vibes, the eyes on you questioning you, you get very quiet and just listen to it and be aware of it without reacting to it. You can walk in any place, anywhere. I love my master, Mr. Mink. He's the greatest martial arts I know in everything in the world. He's the present national champion. He walks it so nice. All of his students walk with him anywhere in crazy places. One night they're all hitting the bars. And why are you here, Pedro? But he's with them. And everyone's happy because there's a certain joy and lightness of being safe in your own skin. So he gives that to, in the same way mother gives her love and her honor and her integrity and her breath and her health and her heart and her soul to her child. So the true martial artist does that. The true gifted artist in any field that's spiritually aligned wants to show the face of God, which is beauty. I know when I saw the sunflower a number of times in the Philadelphia Art Museum of Van Gogh, I couldn't move. It was more sacred, he put God in some thick paint on some canvas. Took his whole life, cost his sanity. But if you look at it, you know he fulfilled his destiny. He knows he fulfilled his destiny. Sometimes we judge some of the great people in our life because they weren't perfect, or Martin Luther King or whatever. He fulfilled his destiny. It's hard for any of us to prove our worth to the world, the great masses, who every one of them, every single one of them, from the greatest genius to the simpleton on the streets, they're living in their prefrontal cortex, which is called the illusion. And once you try these processes, or you're there through prayer, or you're born there, then all will be well with the world. And the former things shall be past. And there'll be peace and plenty in the heart and soul of all. Please trust yourself. Don't be questioned. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Mr. Sculptor.